big note to myself to record. Okay, so we're pretty much all, I think we're all here. That's fantastic. Just waiting for, yeah, Nikki and then Mila to activate video. As we get started talking about persuasion, specifically in a legal context, there are two key things that we want to cover before we dive into ethos, pathos, and logos in more detail. And the first one of those, the first topic is the concept of authorship and audience. How the author targets the persuasion depending on the audience, and also how the audience receives the persuasion based on the authorship. So that relationship between the author and the audience, and how that impacts both of their tasks, both attempting to persuade and being persuaded. And then the second thing we want to talk about is theory of the case. I cover this in Legal Process 2, but I know that not everybody does cover it. In Legal Process 2, some people do it in a little bit of depth, some people not at all. So I want to make sure that we're all up to speed on theory of the case. And then I'll talk to you about the assignment where you're going to draft a theory of the case in 10 or fewer words, which isn't, it's going to seem onerous, but it's not nearly onerous as what I make the first years do, which is to draft it in 6 words. No more, no fewer, exactly 6 words. So you guys have a 10-word maximum, and you can come in anywhere under 10 that you want. It's still going to be hard, but not as hard as the 6 words. The 6 word is a particularly delicious form of torture. Okay, so to start with, we're going to continue as we transition from what we already know about persuasion into what we need to know about legal persuasion. We're going to continue with a look at advertising as we talk about audience. And so I'm going to share some splash pages with you. These are the first splash page for 4 different websites. These are all beverage companies. And so I want to talk about each one of the websites individually, and then we're going to compare them and talk about how each one approaches their task differently to persuade someone to consume their beverage or to continue consuming their beverage over other beverages. So we shall get started with that. We have a lot of screen sharing today to do. And oh, there we go. There we go. It should, in just a second, we'll look at that. I'm trying to get it to pull up just the Coke ad. For some reason, it's super, super slow. Okay, let me try it this way.
Hey, one of the guys today, I think David.
Okay, something happened. That is super weird. Okay, so I'll do it using, I can make this work. Okay, so rather than do the screen, the regular slideshow setting, I'm going to just use. And there we go. Okay, so what you should see right now on your screen, or should be about to see, is the splash page for the Coca-Cola website. There we go, splash page for the Coca-Cola website. So let's talk about who you think the audience is. Oh, and let me ask you guys one question about this. Do you still have the box at the bottom that lets you choose the participant thing and raise your hand and the whole 9 yards? Okay, I'm getting a nod. Okay, so by show of hands, because I've got the Coke thing on my main screen, and then I've got you guys in video on my second screen, so I can see the raise hand stuff and all that. So who wants to tell us a little bit about, based on the ad, who you think the audience is?
I will.
Yeah, Marilyn.
Hi.
Hi.
I think young, female, and yeah, I think the younger generation, and they're targeting females, from what I can see here.
Okay. Sean, what do you think?
I think it's more like from the selected region. I think they're targeting like the whole world, kind of, from like, you know, you could go to North America, Latin America, Europe,
Right.
Asia. I don't know if it's just because it's a girl drinking, if it's just they're targeting girls. But yeah, I think a younger audience too, because it's soda. So it's not like many older people you would target, because they don't drink soda as much as the younger generation does.
Okay.
But I think the younger generation and at a global scale.
Okay. Lorraine.
I think it's the same. I think it's everyone, but I don't think it's just women. I think it's men too. I think they're trying to appeal the bottles to the mouth, and I think it's trying to draw everyone in, really.
Okay, so not just female and not just young.
Correct. I think it's yeah. Well, maybe younger. I agree with that. It might be younger, but I don't think it's just female. I think it's male, female.
Okay. Okay. Randy, what do you think?
I think that they're definitely targeting a younger audience, a trendy audience. If you look, she has a red hat on, and that matches perfectly with her lipstick and with the whole red Coke logo. The background, there is no background at all, which makes me want to focus more on her. So definitely a younger, trendy audience.
Okay. Joan, what do you think? Oh, sorry, Nick.
I think it really just appeals to anybody. It looks like the bottle's kind of like condensating and stuff, so it looks like anybody who's been outside on a hot day knows like what a cold Coke would taste like, especially during the summer. You know, like she's wearing a hat, looks maybe saying it's summer. I think it appeals to everybody. I wouldn't say just like a younger crowd.
Okay.
Maybe like it entices a memory, like, oh, like as an older person saying, oh, I remember having a cold Coke during a barbecue or whatever.
Okay. What about question is for everybody. What kind of values do you think it appeals to? Rayanne?
Values? I mean, I guess in a way it's appealing to kids, but it's not valuing really the healthy consumption of drinks. Like, you should be drinking water, I guess, on a hot day. I think I think it might be geared more towards maybe the look and the feel of having the Coke in your hand. So you're valuing the comfort of a product that you know is going to be good and is going to taste good.
Okay.
And that you value that experience on a hot day. And I personally think the Coke in the glass bottles tastes much better than in the can. So maybe valuing that too.
Okay. Joan, what do you think?
I think it may be the taste, the value might be the feeling that's evoking.
Okay, what feeling do you think it evokes?
Taste the feeling young,
Okay.
refreshed.
Okay. What about Stan? What do you think?
Well, I get the impression that it appeals to kind of like it's almost rebellious, because if you noticed, her hat is on backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she's drinking a Coke straight out of the bottle. You know, she's not using the cup or a straw. Kind of gives me the sense that it appeals to more of like the younger, rebellious, you know, type of individual.
Okay. Jackie.
I was going to say that maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's the young as well as more male, because it's not explicitly sexual, but it doesn't really talk about being refreshing. It's talking about more taste and feeling and just the angle at which she is. You only see her face and her mouth and the hand. So I think that it's appealing towards more of a male crowd and more of that young kind of venereal impulse of like sexuality and being risque rather than wholesome, because of just like the angle at which it's, because when you kind of think of gearing your advertisers more towards women, it's more like ethereal looking. You get more of like a sense of fashion or something, and when it's more geared towards sexual impulse, it's more in your face and not as like, it's like there she is, hand bottle, taste the feeling, and it's very one and done.
Okay. Brian, what do you think?
Two things. First of all, I don't know anybody who's ever drank a Coke like that. So I think the angle and how it is like what Jackie said, is very free. Also, I think that the consistency, I think listing the regions out and having the Coke right in front of your face, to me says that, hey, no matter where you are in the world, you can get a Coke and it's going to taste the same and it's the same quality product.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Joan, what did you want to add? Oh, you're on mute.
I think it would also still save. I think young women would still identify with this beautiful young girl who is drinking this Coke and want to be in her position by drinking that Coke.
Okay.
Rather than just appealing to the sex of men. And
okay. Well, I'm just going to leave that alone. So let's move on now to the next ad. The next one is a Dos Equis ad. And this is the splash page. When you just type in Dos Equis, this is what you get. So what is the audience? First, let's talk about sort of like we did before. Let's first talk about sort of the identity of the audience, like what are the characteristics of the audience, and then what kind of values does it attempt to tap into within that audience? So what do you guys think? Ken?
Well, right away, I just think of like responsibility. That makes me think like, oh, in order to even access this page, you have to be the legal age limit to drink. And
okay.
Putting in your date of birth right away is showing you that Dos Equis, like the brand, is being responsible and wants you to be responsible also.
Okay. Marilyn?
Yeah, I agree that the audience is someone of legal age to drink, but I think the value that they're trying to Well, they're trying to tap into adventurous people. I think that if being adventurous is a value, then that's what they're trying to do here.
Okay. So people who are adventurous.
Yes.
Joan, what do you think?
I think Facebook users would be targeted by the login with Facebook button. That's a
Okay.
huge group of people.
Okay. So, okay. Karina, what do you think?
I was gonna say the same thing, pretty much just like the audience is 21 plus, but it's also kind of like secretive because you can't. It's kind of like blurred in the back. It's black. It's like you need to access like put your age in order to like access this page. It just that's what I got out of it.
Okay. Hold on, I just screwed up. There we go. Randy, what do you think?
I think it's more towards taking a risk. It's like entering like a secret chamber. It kind of looks like a person's about to gamble. It kind of puts me in the mind of like Vegas a little bit, the colors and so forth. So to me, it seems like they're kind of asking you, or they want you to think that you're about to go on some type of journey, because it says things are about to get pretty, it says at the end, it makes you think what's about to happen next. So.
Okay. So sort of what Joan had said, you know, adventure. Oh no, Joan had said the Facebook thing. One of you said something adventurous, and so you're saying, yeah, it looks like, you know, they're about to take us someplace, like it's about to be something interesting. What kind of journey? A hike? Randy, what do you think? What kind of journey?
I would say it's definitely a journey that a person underage is probably not going to be allowed to go on by their parents. So to me, it's definitely going to be something that's going to be for a person of age. And to me, it could be anything. So that's where it says things are about to get a little, crazy. So for me, it makes me think that I'm curious. I would think to be very curious if I was looking at this. I want to type my date of birth in and see what happens.
Okay. Rayanne, what do you think?
I think for me, it's almost like picking a lock. You're picking your age is the lock, is the numbers to get into the lock to get to meet this interesting new type of person and being. And
Okay.
I think that happens with a lot of underage drinkers or like underage people looking to drink. They think getting to the magical age of 21, it will unlock so many great things, and instead it unlocks responsibilities being an adult. But I think that's what they're trying to gear it to make it seem like adulthood isn't as bad as long as you have some type of alcohol, including Dos Equis. So I think that's kind of where they're going towards.
Okay. Let's see. I think we got everybody on that one. Okay, so let's go. Oh, so we talked about kind of the characteristics. Everything that you guys said was some facet of adulthood. Responsibility, adventure, journey, an appeal to sort of something forbidden, something that maybe is related to some kind of vice. And so all of those are so we're definitely looking at an adult. What kind of adult are we looking for? Yeah, Lorraine?
An adult who wants to go on a wild ride, I guess. I don't know, who wants to seek the adventure of, it's obviously drinking alcohol. It's, so maybe they've acquired a taste of this. Maybe they already seen the commercials. Maybe they're appealed by that man. Did he pass away? I don't know. But,
I think he retired.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe they're just, someone who's just hooked into it and want to kind of see what else the commercials have to offer.
Okay, you make a good point in that it reflects back to the commercials, the most interesting man in the world. And, but still, what are we, like, give me a profile. Like, what does a Dos Equis drinker look like? Nicole? Sorrentino, sorry.
I was just going to say he's not like your typical person, or if it is, it's somebody who's overconfident and maybe they're an elitist. I mean, even the sleek website of even putting in your age, the only requirement is if you're of age, then you're in this club of something that you want to, if you're going to come here, you're going to see something interesting. So it's appealing to that. And it's almost like someone who's overconfident or someone who thinks that they should be there, or that's not your atypical. And I have this special beer and it's not like a bud or something.
Okay, so a risk taker, is that what you're describing?
A little bit, yeah. I can't exactly articulate what I'm trying to say. Almost like beyond risk, but someone who thinks that not only they can handle the risk, but they're entitled to it. Like they're in this elite status of, hey, I can do this.
Okay, arrogance maybe.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. What do you guys think in terms of gender, in terms of age, in terms of socioeconomic class? Marilyn?
Well, knowing the commercials, I have that in the back of my mind. I would say older, like middle age, affluent, male, and we talked about adventure before. Someone who's a man of the world, adventurous, wants to do all kinds of different things, bucket list type stuff.
Okay. Okay, so what kind of values does it appeal to? We've identified what kind of person it appeals to. What kind of values does it appeal to? What do you imagine is the value system of the person that we've described? Loretta?
I think the value is that you feel like you're in this elite group. And I agreed when Marilyn said that it's geared towards men, because this looks pretty much like a manly webpage.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is geared towards somebody who's rugged, I think, and looking for adventure.
Okay.
I've never seen any of the commercials for this, so I'm just going by what I see on the screen.
You gotta get on YouTube and look at the commercials.
Okay.
They are really selling an image there, and you guys have really nailed it. Joan, what kind of values does this appeal to? Like, what are the values of the person we've described?
Open-mindedness, probably.
Okay.
That's a tough one.
It is tough. Lorraine, what do you think?
I'm not quite sure. There's a couple things. The men in the, yes, it does appeal to men, but it also has the woman always on his side, more or less, in the commercials.
Okay.
So the value system, it's hard. Even with this whole thing, I think, as long as you're of age, you have computers, you have technology, you can access this website. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to. According to this, I mean, obviously there's other ways to do things, but
right. But this particular one, and there's different, and advertisers will tell you that you do something slightly different depending on whether you're doing a print ad, and this is something that we'll talk about later, but a print ad, a web ad, or a TV ad, or even an ad, a trailer ad in a movie theater. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference between how that's done.
I also think that as far as values, it's hard to say because it's also drinking, and certain people are so turned off by it. And then other people are like, well, after a hard day, I deserve to have a Dos Equis, or I deserve to have a beer or a Coke or whatever it is. So it's hard. I don't know, because people will be either turned off or they'll be turned on.
Right. Right. Hold on, I want to make a note for later. Randy, what do you think?
I think it's definitely the kind of person, would definitely be a male. I'm thinking of like the whole 007 James Bond type of guy, you know, always wearing a classy tuxedo, even though he might be in his early 50s, late 50s. He's still classy enough and has a little bit of swag where he could probably still, you know, charm a woman in her late 20s, early 30s, all the way up to the 50s. So to me, it's kind of like for an older guy who still wants to think that he's cool.
Okay. You hit on something really key, and that is an older guy who wants to think that he's cool. Because by selling, and this is true of all the ads we're going to look at, but certainly it's true of the Coke ad and the Dos Equis ad, that you're selling what people want to be, not necessarily who they think they are. Not necessarily who they think they are already, but rather who they aspire to be, or maybe who they see themselves as, regardless of whether other people see themselves that way. And so you're sort of selling an aspirational vision. So the audience isn't just the people who fit into this demographic, but also the people who would like to fit into this demographic. Because a lot of what advertising is about is promising you that that life, like you identified with the Coke ad, that life will be better if you'll just buy this product. And certainly beverage sales work that way too. Mila, what do you think?
Well, Randy kind of already said it. I agree with 007.
Okay.
I wanted to add, with that respect, I think the value of it represents kind of like respect, maybe even wealth.
Okay.
And then everyone else already said what I wanted to say.
Okay. Fantastic. And let me get one last comment from Nikki, and then we'll move on.
Actually, Mila just said it. I was going to say wealth, and it, like not anything particularly wholesome, but maybe the acquiring of things, and goes back to what you were saying to the person that they actually want to be. So she kind of basically just said what I was
saying. Placing a value on wealth. And I think somebody said, I think Loretta said, sort of an elitism, that whether you actually have the means to be elite, maybe you would like to think of yourself that way. Okay, so let's look at the next ad. So now we have Poland Springs. And what do you guys think about this? So who's the audience and what are the values? Yeah, Loretta?
I think the audience is for people who are being more health conscious.
Okay.
And want something more pure in their diet.
Okay.
It's geared towards, it's a natural product.
Okay.
It could be for family people. This could be geared towards families, mothers, single people. I mean, everybody drinks water.
Mm-hmm. Well, any of you with kids know that not everybody drinks water.
All right, but it's giving you a better choice.
Okay, great. Ryan, what do you think?
I was going to say environmental values too, because it's a natural spring. The scenic image is nice, and then obviously I think that this applies to anybody. So I think somebody who is like environmentally conscious. I also know that the bottles are less plastic than most bottles. So
yeah, it's interesting. The company Poland Spring. The same company actually operates, some of you may know this, operates in several different parts of the country under different names. So this exact same company operates in the southern United States, southeastern and southern, as Ozarka. And the Ozarks are, a mountain range in Arkansas, and there are springs in the Ozarks. And so it's interesting that it's called Ozarka in the South, and it's called Poland Spring. You're not going to get anybody in the South to think of Poland Spring and think, oh, that's so refreshing, because Poland sounds foreign. And that's something that you want to stay away from when you're trying to sell things to Southerners. And so it's interesting to me. They have very similar campaigns, but the branding is just a little bit different in the South than it is here. I don't know if they operate in the Midwest or in California under different names, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out that they do. Rayanne.
Personally, when I see this, I see outdoors. I see someone who likes to go outdoors, someone who's a little bit more health conscious, wants to be outside. This actually makes me want to go outside right now and just spend some time in the woods. I also noticed that they have up in the top, they have sponsorships. So that's actually a well-placed way to get people enticed to use them as a sponsor for their activities, for any type of event that a business is trying to bring about. It's like the free delivery, the save up to $50 on your first order. They're definitely trying to do not only a personal, but they're also looking at a business venture, if there is any type of business venture that they could have with a company or with maybe a local soccer or football team or something like that.
Right.
So I find that to be interesting.
And also, I think the tie-in with money related to families, because you notice that Dos Equis wasn't trying to convince you that it was economical to drink Dos Equis over other beers. There are beers that push that, but Dos Equis, that's not who they're going for. Yusun, what do you think? Make sure to unmute yourself.
What I'm thinking is the value is kind of well-being, because it's water from spring, not purified water.
Right.
So people seeking healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
So value is kind of well-being.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely. Jackie.
Kind of going off of what Rand was saying, when I saw when I look at that person in the corner in the uniform, I kind of think of somebody who's looking for reliability.
Okay.
When you kind of had advertisements where you see people in uniforms, they're kind of, you get a sense of this company is available to you if you have questions, or if you have concerns at the ready, you have somebody waiting to kind of get you the service that you need.
Mm-hmm.
So not only I feel like this website is kind of reaching out to an audience that's very conscious of itself by that, and the bee green symbol, and how it's all very it looks like it's very interactive, and you can get into it has all those little things at the bottom meet our springs and all that stuff. So I feel like it's geared towards a more conscious audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki?
Pretty much what everyone was saying, but I think it's interesting and pretty good marketing strategy, because they're playing to so many different possible audiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone wants to be healthy and whatever, but you're also playing toward a really busy working family that you don't have to do anything. They're just going to deliver it to your door, and it's right there. It's easily accessible, and you're also playing, I forgot who it was who mentioned it, but if you want to be economic about it, you're going to save $50 on your first order.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, they're tagging Nestle, which is a reputable company, and they're saying that it's paired with them and it's by Ready Fresh. So,
Yep, absolutely. Nick, what do you think?
I just like the fact that it says "Born Better" in big bold letters. So I think that's saying that Poland Springs is the best. If you want the best water, you have to drink Poland Spring, and nothing else is gonna be better than them.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. A good point, saying that you can buy water from everybody, but our water is pure from the very beginning. We have the source of our water is a better source. Okay, so let's move on to the very last ad. Go back to our old friend Tropicana. And so who are we trying to appeal to and what values with the Tropicana ad? Because this is a very different approach than the one that we saw in the print ad. Lorraine?
I don't know. I think kids. I think kids would say, "Mommy, I want this." I also think that, you know, it has the tropical 50, so it's all in fresh farm stand. So I think it's geared towards a larger audience than the other one, which was women, men, seductive, whatever, with a swirl. This is general. So I think it would appeal to a vast majority of people.
Okay, so yeah, so you've got kids with sort of the colors, the really clear, concrete colors. You've got women, presumably with the Trop 50. You've got people who are concerned about health with and environmentalism with the Tropicana farm stand. So yeah, they are trying to hit a variety of audiences there. Randy, what do you think?
Well, I was thinking two things. I was thinking first, to me, I think it appeals to whatever family you're a part of, or even if you're a single person. I mean, you got the big supersized Costco size where, you know, you could get it for like if you have 5 kids and you don't have to worry about it, you know, kids drinking all of it up. And then you have the real small one for yourself if you just want to grab it and it's just for you. Also, it says 100% pure squeeze sunshine. Mm-hmm. When I think of sunshine, I think of, you know, I mean, the sun is like the actual building blocks for just about anything. Nothing can survive without the sun. So that's kind of hinting to me of it's actually giving you life a little bit.
Yeah. And notice that it doesn't say 100% pure orange juice. I don't know if it actually is or not, but it says that, first of all, the 59-ounce container is the one that has 16 oranges. I don't know if you guys have ever squeezed your own orange juice, but you are not going to get 59 ounces of orange juice out of 16 oranges. And so I think that's super interesting. And then, so it gives you 100% pure squeeze sunshine, and then 100% of your daily allowance of vitamin C. But it doesn't actually say 100% orange juice, and yet that's the impression you get. That's the impression that you get. Ken?
Yeah, kind of going on what Randy said, you know, I just feel like they're trying to let you know that they have options. You know, if you want a small, just on the run, picking up a small bottle of OJ, or, you know, if you want, you know, appealing to the families, the big orange juices, you know, right away I just was thinking of breakfast and like sitting down with my family, having breakfast with the big orange juices all around and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mila?
Sorry, I have problem with mic. I definitely think that the audience that they trying to target is the family, and even people were saying that they have small bottle, bigger and bigger, depending on everyone's taste. I actually, when I look at these 3 bottles, I see kind of like a family. There is a mother, father, and the child. So I think it targets really families.
Yeah.
That's a orange juice family.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good point. Loretta?
Well, I know you had said, of course, there isn't just orange juice in the container because you couldn't get all that orange juice out of 16 oranges. But they want you to believe that you're drinking fresh juice.
Right.
By putting the straws in the oranges.
Yeah.
That's the impression I get from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And notice again at the top, again, just like you do with the Coca-Cola ad and also the Poland Springs ad, there's a reference to the environment. In the Coca-Cola ad, there's a link for sustainability, which is a nod to what we do to help the environment. And then health benefits, which the Poland Spring also has, and which the Coke ad just stays away from, which is probably best. So let's look now at all of them together. Hold on. Now that we've identified each of what's compelling about each of them, let's talk about what techniques that they use in common. There we go. What techniques do they use in common? So they each appeal to a somewhat different audience. And so what are the things that are different about this that they use to appeal to the audience? So how do they steer toward or away from an audience? What are the techniques that they seem to use? Nikki, what do you think?
I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but in terms of like pathos, like they're picking a target audience and appealing to something that might invoke that person to buy the product. Like with Coca-Cola, maybe it's a young rebellious crowd that they're targeting, so they're putting out visual stimulation and buzzwords and things like that to target that type of person. Okay, so
the specific images chosen,
right? Like
and the specific wording,
right?
So
the marketing tools.
Yeah. So the images are different for each one, and the wording is different for each one. They're specifically calibrated to reach that audience. What else is different for each one, Dominic?
Yeah, so the one thing that I kind of noticed between each one is where you look at orange juice, it's trying to be like more fun. It's got the bright colors. It's got that font that's a little bubbly. While the water's trying to show you it's just natural and it's something that is pure. The Coke is trying to appeal to like people who are teenagers to adults, saying this is something that you want to drink because you're going to enjoy drinking it. And the Dos Equis has that age requirement where it's like, you only can come in and drink this if you're of age, but if you do, you're going to have a lot of fun doing it while you do it. So you go from, they're all trying to evoke, like, well, at least Coke, Tropicana, and Dos Equis are trying to go off of fun, where the Poland Spring is going off of, this is something that's a big part of your life because you're supposed to drink water every day. So if you're going to drink the best, whereas everything else is, you do this and you're going to enjoy it a lot. Well, Poland Spring is very like to the point with that.
And so what you've identified as the strategies used to achieve that, and that's what we want to focus on now. We've identified the fact that each one taps a different audience and taps different values. And what we want to do now is start to discern from the ads, how do they do it? What's different from ad to ad that makes that happen? And so Nikki identified the images and the wording. So the images are different for each one. The wording is different for each one. But images are necessary. Wording is necessary, but they're calibrated. You've identified the colors and the fonts. The colors are meant to convey something. Coca-Cola is meant to convey maybe some excitement, maybe some activity. The colors in Tropicana are just meant to remind you of oranges. The colors in Poland Springs are meant to evoke the outdoors. The colors on the Dos Equis ad are meant to evoke something forbidden and adult. And so while they all do it differently, color is the common denominator there. The other thing you identified was font, that the font is different for each one to target that audience. Ken, what other types of things are used to target the audiences in each of these ads?
Well, I feel like for Poland Spring, you know, like the use of that background, I felt was really strong and appealing for what they're trying to show, and I feel like it's like a clean and clean and clear, you know, and like it's the font too, Born Better. It's not it's nothing fancy. It's just straightforward, and you know, the clean air in the background, and you know, it just makes it look like it's what it's trying to show.
Yeah, so again, the images and the wording. Does anybody have something additional besides images or wording or colors or font? I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to lower everybody's hand. If you have something, is there something different that that you can identify? Lorraine?
It reminds me of that PBS.
Oh, wait, you're cutting in and out.
Young. All of these things have something in common, and one of them has something different.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I don't know. It's just have visuals, and then Dos Equis is dark and it's hidden off, you know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think that, I guess if you, it makes you intrigued, like, why is that way? You know, and then you see little images behind it, but why is it that way? Why wouldn't you want to explore it? You know,
yeah.
It's like kind of dragging you in.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Joan?
I think the Dos Equis ad also requires a level of interactivity with the pop-up that you have to put a date in. It's less passive than the other three.
Okay, so interactivity. They have varying levels of interactivity. Randy?
I was thinking, if you look, you have two different ads that both show a person. And the first ad with the actual Coca-Cola, they seem to want you to focus on the woman, even the way that she's drinking the bottle. I mean, I don't think any person or woman drinks like that, to where she's literally kissing it. You would normally put your whole mouth around it for you to drink.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the male, you see him in the corner. He's smaller, almost no sex appeal. That's not the idea.
Right.
He's more portraying a person that's friendly, that you could count on, that's going to come and do your job, and might even have a little conversation with you. But when you look at the other two ads, there's no images of a person at all. As a matter of fact, with the first ad with the actual beer, it's more, to me, again, with the colors, the red and gold, it's more royalty and more masculine. And when you look at the orange juice, there's no type of sex appeal or anything like that. It's just talking about, to me, I think it's more family in terms of you got the different sizes for whatever size that you need.
Yeah. So again, Randy, you touched on something that Lorraine touched on a little while back when we were talking about the Dos Equis ad, and that is that in making a decision to target one audience, you make a decision to leave behind another audience. And so the Coke ad and the Dos Equis ad are a little bit more specific. Whereas the Tropicana ad and the Poland Springs ad are broader in that way. They don't necessarily cut off any of their audience, unless, as we talked about, I think one of you, I think it may have been Jackie last time, was saying that you didn't even like orange juice. So there's nothing really that's going to appeal to you about an orange juice ad. And they're okay with that because orange juice is their product. And so by going heavy on the images of the orange juice, on the images of the orange itself, they are making a decision that they're not going to try to trick Jackie into drinking orange juice. They're okay with excluding people who don't like orange juice. They're not going to try to convince you that it's good for you, like the other ad did. This one appeals to the universe of orange juice drinkers as a whole, and lets go of another audience. So there are two things to take away from this. The first one is just that in choosing to appeal to one audience, you necessarily choose to let another audience go by. And that's okay. That's a decision that you have to make sometimes, that you can't please every single audience. And if you try to do that, you're likely going to miss your target audience. So it's okay to target the message based on your specific audience. The analog for law is, of course, trial versus appellate, county court versus district court, intermediate appellate court versus the Court of Appeals. And so you target your message to your specific audience, knowing that you're going to not appeal to some other audiences. So for example, a document that appeals very much to a court may not appeal to your client, but your client isn't the target audience of the writing that you do for the court, and so that's okay. Likewise, writing that you do for a client is not going to be sufficient for a court, and that's also okay. So you want to start to think about not trying to please all people with every piece of persuasion that you put out there, because you really can't do that. And in fact, you're more effective if you know who your audience is and specifically target your message to reach that audience. The second takeaway from this has to do with the techniques. They all use the same techniques, but they use them differently. And that's what we're going to see through the course of the semester with persuasion. So everybody used images, the use or the omission of people, wording, color, font, and interactivity. All of those ads reflect calculated decisions on each one of those things to achieve their result. And so we're going to see the same thing with legal persuasion, that you're going to learn a host of techniques, and there's not just one way to use the technique. For example, with these print ads, color is a technique that has to be employed, but red isn't the only color you can employ. So you want to think more broadly about what are the techniques I can use, and then specifically, how do I use each specific technique in combination to target my audience, okay? So those are the two big takeaways from this exercise that you want to think about as we move forward. So that's audience. Now we want to talk a little bit about authorship. And so to talk about authorship, I want to talk about the specifically, sorry, I lost my train of thought. The chat window kills me. It gets me every time. If you guys can save private chat messages that I don't need to read immediately while we're in class, if you can save those for after class, or shoot me an email that I can read right after class, because I check my email as soon as we're done, that would be super helpful. The one where Nikki was having that problem and she asked for help, that was awesome, because once I saw Nikki wanted help, I knew that you guys were going to take care of it, and I could just disregard it. So if you can save anything that you don't need addressed right while we're in class, for like an email maybe, that'd be awesome. And see, now I've completely forgotten my train of thought. Authorship. Okay. So now we're going to talk about authorship a little bit. We're going to start with, hold on. Let me, just by show of hands, how many of you, for a required course in law school, before you start the course, a required one that you have no choice about which to take, and you have no choice about who your professor is going to be, how many of you before the first day of class either Google your professor or read your professor's bio on the website? Just by show of hands. No, not physical hands. Do your other hands. Okay. Karina, why do you do that if you have no choice but to take that course with that professor?
Pretty much to see what what to expect from that professor, because usually they'll tell you if they're easy or hard or something like that. But I usually, just to see what I'm getting myself into, even though I have no control, but that's usually what I do.
Okay. Does reading that, does it in fact set your expectations as you go into that class?
Yeah, definitely. I've
Yeah.
had, yeah, I'm not going to say like a certain professor, but I've had like one professor where I expected it to be like super hard and not enjoy that class, and then it ended up being one of my favorite classes, and I actually ended up loving that professor. But it did like prepare me, kind of, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah. Randy, what about you? Why would you look up a professor when you have no choice whatsoever?
I think for me, I kind of like to know what I'm going to get myself into. I'm one of those students where, I really rise to whatever level that teacher sets. If the teacher is laid back and pretty cool, then that's going to be me. But if I see from, previous posts and from what other students say that this professor is pretty difficult, I'm going to make sure to have my book the first day. I'm going to be there on time. So,
right. Okay. Jackie?
For me, I kind of usually do it depending on what I've heard about the professor before.
Mm-hmm.
I won't name any specific professors, but I know the way that I learn. And when I know that a professor is kind of harder on his class as far as like his the way that he teaches, I kind of just like to mentally prepare myself. Even if I don't have a choice on whether or not he teaches me, I want to know that, okay, well, this is what's expected of me. And I'm at least mentally prepared not to have a breakdown knowing that I have one final to take at the end of all of that.
Okay. Sean, what about you? Mute. You got to unmute.
I think Randy said before, just to kind of go in knowing what to expect. I think if I mentally know what to expect, it makes it easier. Like, I don't know, it's weird to say, but if I know it's a difficult class, just go in knowing, like, all right, like, this class is going to require this out of you. But I think just to have, like, a preview of what to expect, kind of get blindsided maybe.
Okay. What? Well, I'll leave that. So it's the same way when judges read documents. And really when we read things or have to evaluate things, we like to know something about who it is whose hands we are putting ourselves into. It doesn't change the fact that we have to put ourselves into their hands. It doesn't change how they treat us. And it doesn't change the fact that we're still responsible from absorbing that information from that person. But we like to know. We like to be able to set our expectations. Is this going to end up being worth my time? Is this something I really need to worry about? Is this something I'm going to have to work a little harder for than usual? Is this a place where I can kind of let my guard down and sort of just take it all in and it's going to be no pressure and no stress? And the same is true of judges with attorneys that practice in front of them. Judges like to know things about attorneys if they can, and it takes very little to set your reputation, just as it does with a professor. The information that most of you get about professors, it's really pretty hit and miss. And I say that knowing my professors in law school as a student, and now knowing them as peers, and also from knowing, just knowing my colleagues here and knowing what, some of the word on the street is, that, the information's hit and miss. And you guys know it. You know it's hit and miss information. You know that ratemyprofessors.com or even advice from second and third year students is only going to get you so far, but you want it anyway. You want anything you can have that sets your expectations. Once you have set those expectations, it's very hard. You have to work to sort of overcome them. It takes the author much more time to overcome a presumption even one that the audience knows is not well informed or may not be well informed. So, for example, if you have been told by somebody that Professor X is super laid back and just, you can just blow that off, easy A, no problem. And you go in there and Professor X on the very first day of class is like, all of a sudden he's like Shaw on attendance and punctuality. All of a sudden there's hell to pay for showing up late. And where is your book? And why didn't you read for class? Even though your personal experience is that, God, this guy's kind of a hard ass. This is not what I expected at all. It's going to be harder for you to overcome that. You're going to explain that away. You're going to explain your expectation away. Maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe he's, And so it is the same with judges and lawyers, that judges set their expectations very quickly, and it's very hard to overcome them. Obviously, as with everything else, it's easier to overcome a good impression and form a bad one than it is to overcome a bad impression and form a good one. So let me ask you this. What did you guys learn about Michael Smith and Kathy Stanchey? Because Michael Smith is our primary textbook author, and Kathy Stanchey is the person who wrote the review of the book that you guys have read. And so let's evaluate. Let's see if they are credible sources of what we're going to deal with this semester. So, Joan, what did you discover?
I discovered that they taught together at Templeton. Oh, no, at Temple.
Uh-huh.
It was one of the first things.
Mm-hmm.
They're both from very reputable universities.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been teaching it for a while and at different places. So,
okay. Yeah, that's absolutely true of both of them. Anybody else? Yeah, Ken?
I also just wanted to say that I found out that Michael Smith graduated summa cum laude, so I thought that was pretty impressive.
Okay. Excellent. Marilyn?
Okay, a couple of things. Michael Smith, he graduated from Florida, practiced in California, and ended up in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
That was very strange for me, but his interest is in the psychology of persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I see where all that is coming from when you start reading the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kathy Stanchey, on the other hand, she seems to be more of a technical type writer. I mean, she was an assistant director of the Pennsylvania Rules of Evidence,
mm-hmm.
or assistant editor. So
Mm-hmm.
they're coming from two different places, I think. But I guess they were able to meet through that book somehow.
Nikki, what'd you think? What'd you find out?
Well, I think they're credible. They have a good background, and it's interesting that Dr. Smith has a boundary between economics and sociology, and he's named an innovator and was given an award and asked to be a visiting professor at a university. And Catherine Stanchey is very big on women's studies and feminism. So I thought that was interesting. So they have very credible backgrounds, and they seem to be sought after from academia to speak and do conferences and such.
Yeah, they're both they're both very widely published, both very prominent in the field of legal writing and persuasion. And but Marilyn and Nikki, you're both right. They both come at it from slightly different perspectives. Michael Smith comes at it from sort of a psychology perspective, and economics, really, to the extent that we talk about persuasion, economics is really more of a psychological study than it is a financial study. It's about the study of why economics is why people behave the way they do. What are their incentives and what are their rewards? And so he comes at it from that perspective, and she comes at it from the perspective, from more of a feminist theory perspective, that we all have lenses through which we view things, and that you've got to persuade your reader based on what their lenses are, that you've got to be aware of them and be able to accommodate them. Stan, what did you learn?
Well, I wanted to touch on that, on the fact that you said that Catherine is a feminist and she does a lot of work in that area. In her article, which you had us read, Moving Beyond Instinct, her main critique of the book is that it fails to really address the issue of manipulation. How some persuasion can be manipulative. And I kind of, after learning that she was a feminist and she deals with a lot of those issues, I can see why she would say that and why that would be a focal point for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you get a better sense of why she would say what she said when you have a better understanding of who she is and what her priorities are. So this is just a habit that, you want to get into, of thinking about authorship specifically from the advocate's perspective, thinking about what do you bring to the table that sets expectations with your audience about your authorship. And particularly as a young lawyer, you're going to be building that authorship, and that's going to have a lot to do with what we're going to talk about next week on ethos, and that is what ethos is about. Ethos is establishing your credibility and maintaining your credibility. And so the purpose of that is so that you can establish that relationship with your reader. And that's another thing that you want to think about. We've talked about audience, we've talked about authorship. You want to think about, with everything that you write, your relationship, because even though writing is sort of a solitary act and reading is a solitary act, you are forming a relationship with your reader. And so you need to be thinking about, who is my reader? What am I projecting about myself? And how am I doing with that relationship? Okay, so I want to show you some examples. These are two attorneys. I'm going to assume none of you know anything about them. If you do, it's fine. These are, they're publicly filed briefs. Okay, so let me share that. Hold on. So I'm just going to show you the briefs. I don't want you to read them. I'm just going to scroll through them and just take a look. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to, or you can take notes as you're doing it, just jot down some notes, some adjectives about this author. What impressions do you form about this person? If you had to describe this person as a lawyer, what kind of words would you use? And so here we go. And this is the appellant's brief, and then I'm going to show you the respondent's brief in the same case. And this is a case that's before the Court of Appeals this term. It's not one that you're going to look at and you're going to figure out why pretty quickly. So start making some notes about what impressions you may have about this lawyer. And remember that this is the lawyer for the party filing the appeal. So this is the party who bears the burden. Remember, we're not trying to read any of it, just by eyeballing it. What impressions do you have? So just take a minute, sum up your impressions. And then before we move on, because I don't want you to articulate your impressions yet until you've seen the other guy's brief, because it's gonna pull some of this into sharp relief. Because with just the appellant's brief, you don't know how bad it is yet, right? Because you don't know how complex the issue is. And so this could be a relatively simple issue, and this may just be sort of a formatting thing. And so you're not going to know that until you look at the appellate brief. So you will form more conclusions about the first lawyer after you look at the second lawyer's brief. So this is the brief of the prosecution. So as I scroll through this one, make some notes about your impression of lawyer number 2, and then any additional thoughts you have about lawyer number 1. And then the rest of the document is just, it's more of the same. It's another, 13, 14 pages of the same. There's the conclusion. Okay, so what do you guys think? First of all, impressions of lawyer 1. Ryan?
Lawyer 1 definitely did not have you as a professor for legal process. That's all I could say. I thought it was very disorganized. The formatting was horrible. No dot leaders. The spacing of the headers were off. There was actually handwritten numbers on the.
So that's what's wrong with the document. What do you think about? What are your impressions of the lawyer?
I don't think he was probably very educated and probably didn't have much to say on the subject.
Okay.
And didn't really care for his work.
Okay. Marilyn, what do you think?
Well, I thought the one word I kept thinking was that's not professional.
Okay.
Yeah, because misspelling of names and all this, disorganized, careless. Those are the impressions that I got.
Okay.
Yeah, not very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Randy?
Well, at first when I saw the first attorneys, first thing that came to my mind was it was very short in terms of the number of pages. I think he had about like 5 pages or something like that. Pretty short. But I'm also thinking to myself, short doesn't always mean bad. Short could be concise. I know some judges like when things are short and actually concise. You get right to the point. I noticed with some of the citings, it was pretty much old cases. I didn't see anything new. Like, I didn't think I saw anything like in the 90s. With the second attorney, I saw a couple of 2012s. and even a few 1990s. So my impression was, even though I didn't get a chance to read it, I really wish I could read it, because then I could really know, which one is better. But those were the first couple of things that I saw.
Okay. Joan.
Yeah, 5 pages versus 26 pages, 3 cases versus a page and a half of cases.
So what does that tell you, though? Let's focus on, what do we think then? What do you think that means about the attorney?
I think it had something to do with the amount of research they did.
Okay. So not competent at research.
Not competent at research.
Yeah. Loretta, what do you think?
I really don't think he put an effort into it. It didn't appear that he, did enough research or cared enough to find the right cases. It just looks like he threw together some statutes that he thought belonged.
Okay.
The whole look of the document was very unprofessional, but besides that, just the way the work looked, it looked like he really didn't put any effort into it at all. Not like a second attorney.
Nick, what do you think?
It just seemed that the first attorney kind of didn't have any idea what he was doing. Or it's either he did know what he was doing and he kind of left it to 20 minutes before the brief was due. Compared like the second guy, he had his point headings. He had 3 separate arguments. Like, it just seemed that like it's almost like the first guy brought a knife to a gunfight almost.
Yeah. Nikki, what do you think?
Well, I agree with what everyone was saying, and it was a horrible impression just reading the document. So whether this person is a good advocate or not, I already in my mind think that he's careless or she's careless and doesn't know the law and doesn't have correct citations and doesn't care enough to even put page numbers on. So why would he care about representing his client? Or it's just whether the person is a good advocate or not, in my mind, I already have this preconceived notion that they're not.
Right. Jackie?
I was going to say, I noticed the page numbers too, and that kind of made me think that he's either or lazy, and like I think someone else said that he waited till the last minute, because it's not that he didn't put page numbers, is that he Sharpied them in after the fact.
Not even a pen! Not even a pen! A Sharpie!
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I first noticed, like, wow, that's bold but yeah, that's what I thought. Like, I was just like, that's just really lazy. And I think at some point he used he just put to recap, and then he just put like the 2 dots, and then he just like a little blurb, and I was like, that's not a paragraph. And he didn't indent anything. It was just very.
Yeah, I had the same impression. When I saw the 2 recap, I was like, oh no, it's just not getting any better. Okay, let's talk about lawyer number 2. I want you to picture lawyer number 2. I want you to picture the lawyer physically, and I want you to picture the lawyer as a lawyer and as a person, and I want you to describe this lawyer to me. Joan?
I thought the first one would be a little bit of a slob.
Okay.
Dressed. And the second one, very precise and active and very interesting. Good. It's an interesting question to answer, because that's exactly the picture I had in mind.
Okay. Marilyn.
First thing that came to mind was that lawyer 2 has a paralegal, a very good one. But basically he has resources to be professional, and he cares enough to use resources.
Okay. Rayanne.
I guess like the first thing that comes to my mind is someone like Professor Shaw, if you've ever taken him. It's just like that kind of presence. Someone who knows to be prepared, someone who knows what they're talking about, someone who has like they're there, they know what they're doing, they're gonna say what they're gonna say, and they're gonna put the case out and they're gonna lay it out very clearly, compared to maybe I'll just say a 1L after they haven't slept all night after finishing their paper. Maybe they came in with their pajamas on or something like that. Like making a comparison. It's just you're looking at someone who maybe is never been to law school or maybe has been to law school but kind of skated by compared to someone who really paid attention and dedicated their time.
Okay. What else? What about lawyer number 2? Anything else? What are his professional values? Nikki?
I think that that attorney number 2 would value what others thought of their writing and their appearance, not with regard to legal writing, but just the appearance. I picture the second person to be in a suit with a tucked in shirt and all put together, a nice briefcase, not papers everywhere, clean documents written and just without anything spilled on it. And I picture the first one as a train wreck. So I think that the value of the second person would be, I guess, professionalism.
Okay.
One, you know.
Ken?
Well, I think that lawyer number 2 is very thorough, and you can tell by the length of the brief, 26 pages, and all the citations and the use of all the cases.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think that shows that he takes pride in his work and he wants to present the best brief that he can.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Okay. Randy?
I would definitely imagine lawyer 2 being well-dressed, polished, and the kind of attorney that would probably stay up half the night without even getting paid just to make sure that they're going to have a pretty good brief. Also, what came to mind with the second attorney would be he would leave nothing at all a chance. You know, some attorneys might assume that the judge is going to go with this argument, but from 26 pages, he's not assuming anything. He's putting everything out there.
Right. Even though the brief he was responding to was crap. It was complete crap. You can blow that out of the water with half of the brief that the respondent filed. But he didn't. He really went at it, you know, and I think you're absolutely right, Randy. I think you really get the impression of somebody who takes pride in their work, not just as compared to other lawyers, but just, I want to be proud of my work regardless of what the other guy does. You know, even though I could punt on this and still win, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to really put the effort in. So you really see a difference between the two. Again, when I just found these briefs the other day because I was reviewing pending Court of Appeals cases for the judicial writing class to hear. And I came across this one and I could not believe it. I will tell you what's funny is I found a lot wrong with lawyer 2's brief. There was a lot wrong with lawyer 2's brief, but it was so much better than lawyer 1's brief that I completely discounted it. I was like, you know what? It's minor stuff. I saw a ton of citation errors. I saw a ton of formatting problems. I saw all kinds of things that were not really optimal. But by comparison, it was so much better. Let me ask you this. Put yourself in the position of the judge receiving those briefs. Which one do you want to read first? Because your job is to decide the case. Which one are you going to read first? Yeah, Jackie?
I would think that you would want to read the first one first, because like you said, when we first saw it, they are the one with the burden, so they are the one that has to muster the claim. Otherwise, it's at that point, if they don't meet their burden, then it doesn't really matter it does matter, but it's less of a challenge for the other side to fight it.
Well, okay, yeah. Assuming that you've got both in front of you, you're saying go ahead and read the first one first, because that's going to tell you sort of how much you need to invest in the second one. Because if the first one is complete crap, then you don't necessarily have to go through the trouble of researching and reviewing all of those arguments. You can get rid of it, maybe even on procedural grounds. Sean, which one do you want to read first?
I would read the second one first, just because I feel like you would learn more about the law from the second one because of how many more cases they apply.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you could understand the topic or what the argument is better and more thoroughly. Whereas the first one, I feel like if I read it, I'd be like, all right, well, like I feel like, what if this happened? What if this, like, what else can change the decision? I
Right.
think from what I saw from the second one, from all the cases, I mean, I gotta assume it's it's more substantial and probably answers a lot more questions.
Yeah. Loretta, what do you think?
I think I would read the second one first because as a judge, I would feel like that attorney put some effort into it and cared about his product and cared about the facts of the case, while the first one didn't seem to put any effort in at all. And I feel like I would rather read the second one first because I think I would get more of what's going on in the case from the second one.
Okay. It's interesting that regardless of which one you guys choose to read first, the reason is basically that you don't expect anything out of the first one. You either want to read the first one first so that you can figure out how much time you need to dedicate to the second, or you want to read the second one first because you don't expect to understand the law from the first one. You don't have any expectation whatsoever. Okay, so we have identified, I have here a half a page of characteristics that you guys have identified for each lawyer. I've got a half a page for lawyer one, a half a page for lawyer two. We've never met these men. We don't know anything about these men. If I were to give you another document tomorrow with the first lawyer's name on it, what would your expectations be? Yeah, a lot of you are shaking your head. You're not really going to have any expectations. I will tell you, this is completely unrelated. It's a side note and just a bug I want to put in your ear. When I see this kind of work as a lawyer, the first thing I think is either drug or alcohol addiction. Because it's really unusual. I know some of you are laughing, but I really do. The first thing I think is drug or alcohol addiction, because it's really unusual for someone to take the time and the money and the soul crushing experience of going to law school, passing the bar, entering into practice, taking on clients, and then to do it that badly. That's certainly not the norm. And so my first instinct when I see something that bad is something's wrong and somebody needs to call the lawyer's assistance program. And the judge needs to report this to the bar because this is really, it's really horrible. You also, and some of you touched on this, you also get a sense of how much respect these lawyers have for the people whom they represent. It's a real shame that this guy was representing a criminal defendant with a claim that was apparently good enough to get to the Court of Appeals and then really kind of punted the whole thing once he got, doesn't even punt, just threw the whole thing in the garbage once they got there. And so I think we're looking at somebody in some sort of distress, I think. And I just want to put that bug in your ear because when you see lawyers who are really, really bad, your first thought generally ought to be distress and not incompetence. Most lawyers, that's not incompetence. It is incompetence, but that's not the primary thing that's going on there. I just say that so you have an idea. Okay. So we only have a few more minutes, and this has been a fantastic discussion, and I hope you have gotten a lot of food for thought about yourself as a writer and how important it is to really, first of all, how many different ways you can persuade using a common set of techniques, how important it is to establish a good relationship with your reader and to target your document for your reader, and also how important credibility is to just getting your work read. That a lot of people just won't even read work that's really bad. And so I'm going to put off theory of the case. We're going to start with that on Monday. And so currently the deadline for your 10-word theory of the case is June the 6th. I'm going to move that to June the 8th. You're not going to need a whole weekend to do that. The 2 days will be fine. So we will start with theory of the case next time and then move into ethos. And there's one final thing I want to show you, another type of, do I want to do that? Yeah, I'm going to let you read it a little bit more thoroughly before class. I'll post it for you for class for next Monday. But I want you to see this. This is another kind of problem with credibility. And this is really a very different type of brief. Hold on. Is that going to go? Yeah. Okay. So I tried to redact this at one point, and you can still see everything through it, which is perfectly fine because it's a public document. I was trying to be nice, but the person who gave it to me was actually in this law firm and said, no, you don't have to be nice. We know that this was a bad decision. Okay, so looking at this document, just looking at it, you wouldn't think there was a problem. It's generally formatted pretty well. It's a pretty professional looking work product. It's not an appellate brief. It's a different kind of document, so the numbering is perfectly appropriate. So just to glance at it, you wouldn't necessarily think there's a problem. But let's drill down on this a bit. So claim number 2. So it passes sort of the first hurdle, which is, does it look like it was produced by a professional? And sure, it's perfectly fine. Number 2, plaintiff's counsel's protestations to the contrary notwithstanding, defendants have made a prima facie showing that the car accident did not cause Mr. whoever he was any injury qualifying as statutorily serious. Those scare quotes around serious kind of lends an air of sarcasm to it. That's a little unprofessional. 3 physicians have objectively examined plaintiff's various ranges of spinal motion and determined them to fall within normal ranges. And then, this one doctor, what he said doesn't matter. Counsel's opposition asserts that the defense examiner, and then his name, affirmatively diagnosed a 30-degree diminution of cervical range of motion, but failed to offer a substantive explanation for this conclusion. Not true. So again, the tone is a little confrontational, a little combative. Dr. whoever merely informed that normal cervical flexion is up to 50 degrees and that he subjectively moved his neck through a 20-degree range of flexion. The doctor also noted that the examination failed to reveal any evidence of, and then goes on. From there, the last sentence in that paragraph, the substantive explanation is Dr. X's polite way of saying that the plaintiff is an exaggerating faker. Again, a little snarky for a court document. 4, counsel asserts his motion should be denied because I submitted his client's own medical quote-unquote records, such as they are, while failing to contradict and therefore vouching for the same, which demonstrates structural injuries to his shoulder and spine. What a crock. So it starts to get more revved up from here. Let me move down to the next one. Number 7, let's dispense with the 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper contained within Dr. X's medical records that aren't Dr. Y's medical records at all, and accordingly bear not at all on the court's determination of this motion. Those would include every single piece of paper after the 21st piece of paper comprising movements Exhibit G. Pages 22 through 36 are the illegible scrawl of some unidentifiable individual from something called, and then there's a clinic name, I included them merely to show the court what we're dealing with here. They are of the usual Chinese menu, check off the box, circle some stuff sort, favored by no-fault bilking mills. Excuse me, multi-specialty traumatic injury rehabilitation facilities like that run by the good Dr. Y and his site-sharing multi-specialist. Page 37 through 45 are itemized insurance billing forms. Enough said. Page 67 through 75 are exclusively worthless tripe on which plaintiff has initialed his presence in the building on numerous days for, one might only suppose, physical therapy. Another comment here, at least they're signed by him. And then we get to the truly good stuff. As concerns the bogus shoulder claim, note the consistent absence of even check marks intended to convey any problem at any extremity. His signature at the bottom of the phantasmagorical narrative leads to but one reasonable conclusion. Someone must have Polaroids of him doing terrible things to a dog with a fork. Here, this last sentence, affirmation only seems to manifest when plaintiff is being assessed by Dr. Y. And then the final conclusion. Here's what's interesting about this. Again, on the surface, it looks like a professional document. The arguments are actually perfectly valid, and this lawyer won this motion. However, the lawyer was ordered to apologize to the opposing counsel and the court in writing, in public, and I believe was fined for this document. And so this is a smart lawyer, clearly. This is a somewhat professional lawyer, but there is enough lack of professionalism here that it hurts the lawyer's credibility, not only for this action, but going forward, since the court has sanctioned the lawyer. So lack of professionalism comes in a lot of forms. I know that it's very tempting when you write a document. It's very tempting to put snarky stuff like this in there, but it's very, very dangerous to do so. It really hurts your credibility, and it hurts your relationship. Again, going back to authorship and audience, it hurts your relationship with the audience, first of all, because it's snarky and unprofessional, and second of all, because it demonstrates a lack of trust in the judge to assess the arguments and come to a reasonable conclusion. And in fact, this judge was actually able to do that despite the language that it was cloaked in. And so it really, I'm sure it felt great to write. I'm sure it felt great. But it really damaged that lawyer's relationship with that particular judge, who was in fact a judge that lawyer was going to have to appear in front of many more times after that. So just some things to think about. So we're going to pick up with theory of the case and then get into ethos on Monday. And then your 10-word theory will be due on Wednesday instead of today. For Monday, to save us a little bit of time, that document that I posted on Twin, Hurricane with Questions, read those lyrics and see if you can sort of, and think about, you don't have to commit to anything, but think about the questions at the end about what is the legal theory and what is the factual theory with regard to that case. And that's where we'll pick up on Monday. Have a great weekend. I can't believe, it's so funny. I feel like I've met with you guys a bunch of times, but this is only the second time. I will see you guys next week.